If you're looking for the most amazing podcast ever, well, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast, guaranteed to let you down and leave you unsatisfied.
Episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach, coming to you live all the way from Riverside, California, on another beautiful Thursday evening. That's right, it is a Thursday night. You know what it is? It's Star Bros. That's what we do. We talk about Star Wars on Thursday nights. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that we've been following The Mandalorian, and we're preparing to get into season 2. So that's what we're doing tonight. Tonight is going to be a cool episode. We're going to do pretty much a little review about Return of the Jedi, which is the 6th episode in the entire saga. So we're going to kind of go over that today, which will be a fun episode. I just want to say shout out to all the listeners, subscribers, all you guys. Holler. We are blazing the trail for 1,000 downloads. So let's just keep it going, guys. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing all those things. Really means a lot to me here at the Average Fellas Podcast. So yeah, tonight let's get into it. It's Thursday night. You know what it is, Star Bros. I got my co-host here. What's up, my guy?
What's up? Beastmodesquats here. How's everybody doing tonight? Basically, Return of the Jedi, Star Bros, episode 6. Awesome.
Episode 6.
I like this. I mean, besides the Ewoks and Slave Leia, obviously it's cool to see how this plays in with, this takes place, the timeline, this takes place right before Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So, which is super cool. I like how we're doing this, the timeline.
Exactly.
Definitely. And we get to see a little bit of Boba Fett in here, which he will be in season 2 of The Mandalorian. I'm excited.
That's going to be
excited.
awesome. So
yeah.
That's one thing. Okay, so that's one thing that we've been on the lookout for is Boba Fett. So that's why that's why we wanted to watch Return of the Jedi, because Return of the Jedi takes place at a certain place in time, which is 5 years prior to Mandalorian season 1. Okay, so that's why we're reviewing Return of the Jedi tonight.
Yes.
That's why we're doing it today, right? Because we want to highlight this part in the timeline. Recently, Courtney and we actually have gone through the entire library of all the movies. We finished them all. And
that's tight.
It's a whole different perspective when you take in the timeline, when you watch it from start to finish. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Big difference. Especially if you try to put in Star Wars, even with Clone Wars series, it's a crazy combustion of timeline.
Knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
The universe expands.
You think the MCU or the DCEU has a crazy timeline? Star Wars has a legit timeline.
Yeah, Star Wars is where it's at. So I think the next thing that we're gonna try working on, actually, Courtney and we're gonna try putting together is even a Harry Potter follow along series as well. So we'll watch like 2 movies, do a review on it. Watch 2 movies, do a review on it. Kind of like what we've been doing with Star Wars. So I was like, you know what, that could be fun. You know what I'm saying?
That's cool. Definitely.
And then you would be able to listen and follow along too, because you've never even dove into the Harry Potter world yet. So
not really very much. I mean, I've heard about it. Obviously grew up, I was more on the Lord of the Rings side compared to, grew up with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So it's cool, definitely.
Hey, so anyways, so it's Thursday night, man. We got to talk about Star Wars, man. We got to get into Return of the Jedi, man.
Let's get into the bread and butter. This is the core, the Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, man.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let me before we get into this, let me ask you, what is your favorite? What is your favorite? What's a highlight of Return of the Jedi for you? Because there's no spoilers in this. We know what happened. I mean, this movie's been out forever now. What's your highlight?
I'm gonna say it.
Say it.
I'm gonna say it. Slave Leia.
Oh
my god. Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, obviously yes. Carrie Fisher, God rest her soul. Big props to Carrie Fisher for doing a great, amazing job as Princess Leia. No one else could have handled that scene. Could have handled her better than Carrie Fisher. So definitely big props to Carrie Fisher for that.
Shout out to Carrie Fisher.
Shout out to Carrie Fisher. But definitely like this one being the Ewoks and everything, the speeder bikes, you get to see the speeder bikes. Actually, one of the first times I think Luke has his speeder bike, but you get to see it, but you don't. But you get to see a lot more interaction with the speeder bikes in this episode.
In this episode, yeah. That was I mean, honestly, those are pretty cool. I like the speeder bike scenes. Cool, those are fun.
I like them. I like them a lot. Definitely. I mean, you have your Ewoks, they're little bears. You see these little. They as someone would call it, they look like Care Bears that are like just on graveyard shift.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, man. Oh my God.
That's what one of the things that I heard. They're Care Bears on graveyard shift. That's really what they are.
What I really appreciated about it is we got to see more. We got to see Lando. We got to see more Lando in this one, yeah. And I'm a Lando fan, man. Lando's my guy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Even in the new movies, he's just like this cool. He's got a lot of swag at the end. He
comes back and it's Lando. Who doesn't like Lando?
I know, man. Puts a smile on everybody's face.
The original owner of the Falcon. The original owner, which is so cool.
Yeah. So I mean, and then in this episode, in Return of the Jedi, there's a little bit of everything for everybody, right? So you get this bank heist this heist scene in the beginning where you pick up in the beginning of the episode, and Han Solo is frozen in carbonite, right?
He's been handed over to Jabba the Hutt.
He's been handed over to Jabba the Hutt, yeah.
By the bounty hunter, Boba Fett.
Yeah, so basically Boba Fett was able to track them back to Cloud City, right? He rats them out to the Empire. Vader comes and he's like, yo, we need to wrap this up real quick. Let's test it out on the smuggler Han Solo. So they test out this makeshift, carbonite
frozen carbonite machine.
Exactly. And so they freeze Han Solo, hand him over to Boba Fett, which is sick, man. We see him load him up on Slave One, and it takes him off to Tatooine to trade him up. He goes collects the bounty.
He basically, and it's so crazy though, because he's like a trophy on Jabba's wall.
Yeah, he is in the cantina.
Has him up for display in the cantina. If you notice, like he's just up on the wall like this is the great Han Solo.
Yeah, that reminds me like in Minecraft, right? So like in Minecraft, one of the cool things that I really appreciate about Minecraft, right, is that you can collect banners from the pillagers, right?
Yes,
and when you collect those banners, man, you go put them up in your little tavern, like trophies. And it just shows, it's just swag, right? And so Jabba's in his own palace, in his own cantina. He's got Han Solo
flag up on the wall,
hanging on the wall, like, "Yo, I caught this dude." And he's pretty much telling all the other smugglers. He's telling them like, "Yo, like you're gonna catch some heat if you do me dirty like Han Solo. Look,
he's up on the wall now.
He's up on the wall now.
He's up on the wall now. So." And which is crazy because you never seen this before in Star Wars history of carbon freeze. You haven't seen this yet.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the gangster side of Star Wars. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is more that gangster type, club thug feel.
But you also get that in Han Solo's movie, in the Solo movie.
Yes.
The underworld of Star Wars, which is cool, And so we pick up Return of the Jedi starts with trying to break Han Solo out from Jabba's palace, pretty much, right?
Yep.
And so this is a pretty cool scene because I think it's well. I don't know if you got this, but pretty much from my perspective, what I understood is that Luke Skywalker orchestrated this whole entire thing from start to finish, like even taking into consideration that they were going to jump on the pleasure barges or whatever they were and go out and cross the desert, go in front of the Sarlacc
sand dunes. They were going to go to the sand dunes.
They were going to go to the sand dunes. Like he knew that this was going to happen, and you sort of see it play out perfect, real time. I don't know if you kind of got that feeling, but I did.
Well, he already had sent R2D2 and
Exactly.
C3PO like, hey, here's my message. Like, you go give this to Jabba and tell him I'm coming.
Yeah, tell him
You tell
coming.
him I'm coming and hell's coming with me. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like, that's
exactly what he
literally
said.
what he did.
Yeah.
That's literally what he did. He sent his 2 droids, just go over there and tell this guy, like, hey, I'm coming. And if you don't give over Han, hell's going to have to pay. Hell's going to freeze
My
over if I go down there.
This was my favorite thing about this episode. The sickest thing. Okay, so R2 is like one of my favorite droids ever, right? If you got an R2, you got him. He's an astromech unit, and you got him on your squad. Like you're going places because he is resourceable, right? R2's pouring.
Way resourceful.
Yeah, he's pouring drinks. Like he's serving drinks on the barge. He's having a good time serving drinks. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, and the whole time, people don't understand this. The whole time, he has been given one of the greatest missions of all time.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro.
He's
like,
got it. Yeah.
He's in possession. He's in possession of the lightsaber this whole time, and nobody knows.
Nobody knows it. It's just tucked away in his head somewhere.
It's just tucked away in his body, which is so cool because speaking of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in this, he crafted it himself.
Yeah, in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, exactly.
In Return of the Jedi, there is a cut scene that you could only find either on like special Blu-rays or on YouTube. Him actually making his lightsaber. Wow. And it's the new one with the green crystal.
Wait, this is on Blu-ray. You get to see this?
You get to see this on Blu-ray. On the new one, it's the deleted scenes. It's one of the deleted scenes, and he actually makes his own lightsaber.
You get to see him
crafting the green lightsaber.
I had no idea.
He mimics it after Obi-Wan's. If you don't know,
the style and how he builds it.
The style and the hilt is mimicked Obi-Wan's hilt.
Wow.
Just without the ball at the end.
I never really realized that. I never
really realized that because he crafts it after his old master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and so it's super cool to see. If you don't know, his last lightsaber, when he gets his hand chopped off, it falls down
in Cloud City. It falls
down the shaft in Cloud City.
And then who picks it up though? We don't see it.
Maz Kanat picks it up. Somehow we don't know exactly how she gets it, but
speaking of Maz Kanat,
she comes in possession of it.
When we see her in The Force Awakens, we actually see what is she flying in the front of her bar.
She has a couple flags up in the front of her bar.
Exactly.
Some of them are the rebellion. Some of them are rebellion signs. I think you do see a Mandalorian.
You do see a Mandalorian flag. You do see a Mandalorian.
Yeah, the Bantha skull. I remember seeing that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. That's a cool little nugget right there, tying us back to the Mandalorian. So I think they were kind of like trying to put some pieces together, right?
And I think you have to really pay attention if you got to get those small little details. You have to really dive deep into it, which is super cool.
Yeah, and it helps to watch all the movies.
It's so. A side note: Jabba on the other hand has his own band and club dancers.
Yeah,
I'm like, this guy is dope. Like, come on, bro. Like,
I'm trying to party with Jabba, dude.
Famous, when you're that famous, like, come on, you're Jabba the Hutt. You're literally the Hutts. Like the Hutts, you specifically know what the Hutts is gangsters. They literally say it in episode 1. Like they're like, we can't take the Royal Highness there. The Hutts are gangsters, So like this guy literally has like dancers all over the place. He literally. Side note: Jabba snacks on. They're called Caltooine. They're called Caltooine padded frogs. So he dips his hand in that little bowl.
Yeah.
On the side. Those are called Caltooine padded frogs.
Gross.
Super cool fact.
It's cool. It's a cool fact. I like it. I know. It's a really good fact.
It's a cool fact. It's like, so now you know.
Now you know. So at the end of this scene, pretty much this whole entire first opening, the beginning part of this is awesome because they're breaking Han Solo out of Jabba's palace, and that's where we're introduced to the famous slave Leia scene, right? And she's pretty much chained to Jabba. She's chained to Jabba on his barge, and Luke Skywalker conducts like this weird like little just like trick or something where he jumps off the edge of the plank, because he's got to walk the plank pretty much, right?
Very
And
pirated,
yeah,
very bounty hunter, pirated gangster.
and
Plank.
he does this cool like somersault move, which like all of a sudden everything begins to pop off all of a sudden, right? And this is where the famous whole entire R2D2 launches the lightsaber into the
The
sky.
lightsaber midair. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And now this is a part that for me this is a highlight of Return of the Jedi. It's one of them, is that we actually get to see Boba Fett kind of do something instead of just stand
Hmm.
around and be a cool guy. Like he's a really cool looking
He
character.
interacts.
Yeah, he finally interacts, but what we get is he gets Django fetted really fast, like pretty much. But this is kind of strange though, because like this actually happened first, right? So Boba Fett gets Boba Fetted, where he flies over onto the barge that Luke's on, right? To the little skiff, whatever you want to call it. I
And
don't know.
Han and Chewie are both
Han
on
and
too as
Chewie
well.
and
Han
Luke
and
are
Chewie
on
are,
one.
yeah, they're all on there.
And so Boba
Um,
he jetpacks over to their little barge, and instantly, almost basically instantly, gets knocked into the Sarlacc pit, and that's the end of Boba Fett.
but here's the funny thing: it was on accident. He accidentally gets knocked into the Sarlacc pit
Accidentally, yes. Well,
because Lando is in the Sarlacc pit trying to climb up, and
right.
so Han and Chewie are like trying to figure out this way of getting Lando back.
And
up.
Han's
It's
still
super
kind of
funny.
blind. Hans can't
Yeah,
really
Han's so
see.
blind. He's like, he can't see nothing, and he's just like, "Hold it, Chewie. Tell me where to go, Chewie. Tell me where to go." He turns around with this staff thing, knocks Boba in the back,
Yeah.
and just disrupt his jetpack and sends him flying into the Sarlacc pit. It's like, dude, one of the coolest like guys in Star Wars
The most dangerous bounty hunter in the galaxy.
goes out the worst and ghettoest way. It's like, bro, like, come on, he couldn't get like even Django had a cool death.
Okay, well, Django did have a cool death, which
Yeah.
but this was I was going to tell you about this. Speaking of Django, I don't know if you noticed this, but Luke actually chops off Boba's blaster. He cuts it in half.
Yes, he cuts it in half.
I don't know if you remember, but Django's blasters get cut in half too by Mace Windu before he loses his head.
Before he loses his head.
Exactly.
He actually gets his he gets his hands cut off. Django.
Is it his hands? Oh wow!
Both of his hands get chopped off, and then Mace Windu goes for the head.
Goes for the head.
He goes for the head.
So I have a question: is Captain Phasma's armor Beskar?
I have not looked into it. It can deflect. Obviously, it deflects blasters.
It does deflect a blast, which I did see. I've seen that.
It can deflect a blaster. I've seen, what's his name, shoot at her. Finn.
Yeah.
And the armor deflects it. But Finn uses like this like sledgehammer looking blade thing and just right to Phasma's head, who he calls obviously Chrome Dome. You know, and it takes off a good chunk of her helmet. So, I mean, obviously, it takes some brute force to hit that steel, though. You know, it's not just a little hit. You know, it does take a little bit of brute strength. But it could be. We don't know. We don't really know. We got to look into that more.
So, I mean, we basically know what happens, right? Leia chokes out Jabba the Hutt. She chokes him out. Him out. And really strange dichotomy. You have Jabba the Hutt, this slimy slob, and then you have Carrie Fisher there right next to him, right? So at the end of the whole entire scene, right, they end up taking off, and Luke's like, "Hey, don't forget the droids. You know, don't forget the droids." And this is one thing to remember, okay? At this time in Tatooine, droids are still like basically enslaved. You know, they're not treated as, you know, they're not treated as like, you know, they're not respected. They're treated as like they're basically
workers on moisture farms.
Right,
literally
exactly.
Workers on moisture farms. That's literally what they are.
Well, I mean,
helping
like that's
hands.
they're just and they're you know, they're not allowed to go into certain buildings. They can't go into certain you know, there's certain, you know, like if you see, like they'd be like, "We don't allow your type in here." when you first get on Tatooine in episode, I want to say 4. Remember when Luke goes into the club with Obi-Wan? They're like, we don't serve their kind here.
We don't serve their kind here.
Yeah, and
they
the
have
droids,
to wait outside.
They gotta wait outside,
Yeah.
exactly. And so at the end of this one, Luke's kind of like, "Hey, don't forget the droids." And like you see how droids are treated on in Jabba's palace too. You get to see how like they're just sort of they're enslaved pretty much. You know.
Another this is not to go off topic, but I mean we're talking about droids. We're talking about the Sarlacc pit. You know, a cool creature in this movie is the Rancor.
Oh yeah, I forgot to bring that up.
Super cool. The Rancor, actually, Luke gets stuck in a trap. He kind of gets, there's a trap door that he falls into. And he has to fight a Rancor, which is, it's a towering hulk of muscle. That's what it's described as. It's described as a towering hulk of muscle.
I like at the end of that scene. I like at the end of that scene when
go ahead.
I like at the end of that scene when the guy starts crying. He's like after the Rancor dies.
Just this guy is like, it was like his favorite creature. I always thought like in the past, man, this was like his pet. Like I think I think the Rancor was his pet.
Yeah.
And like Jabba literally hired him because that was his pet.
Yeah.
Just because that was the emotion that I got off that guy.
Yeah.
So
I want to move.
Like,
I want to move on.
yeah.
I want to move on to when we finally discover that when they finally free Han Solo, right? And they get back to the rebels, and Luke's like, "Yo, I got to go finish my training," or I think he goes to finish his training, right? And at this time, there's a scene that happens. I don't know if you want to pick it up there. He goes back to Dagobah to finish his training with Yoda.
Oh yeah. So basically, Luke and R2 head to Dagobah, the Dagobah system. If you're not familiar with the Dagobah system, this is where Yoda resides after Order 66. Order 66 happens. Yoda has to flee from Coruscant to hiding.
Yeah.
And so this is like his escape planet, pretty much. And so Dagobah is it's like a swamp planet.
System, yeah.
It's a swamp system.
But the last time, Yoda, he escapes from Kashyyyk, right? Because when we see him, he escapes from Kashyyyk.
From Kashyyyk to Coruscant. He goes to Coruscant to battle the Emperor.
That's right. Okay, and then he goes to Coruscant, and then after that, because he fails, he runs and he hides in the Dagobah system. But here's the thing about a cool thing about the Dagobah system. The Dagobah system is actually, there's a Sith temple there that actually resides there, and so it's haunted by the dark side of the Force. And
so it kind of makes it easy for Yoda to hide there, because for some reason it's like you can't sense the Jedi there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's sort of like a shield.
There's a shield against the Force, so against like Jedi Force there. So it makes it very easy for him to hide there. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No, I never heard that, but that kind of, I don't know if you remember. There's that whole entire scene where Luke goes into a cave when he first gets to Dagobah,
and he's his dark side,
and he sees himself in Darth Vader's helmet. Remember
Darth Vader's helmet, yeah. And in Clone Wars, Yoda goes through that same process. It's the path of the Jedi to split between good and evil. Rey kind of has this. She does have a vision of this. In Return of Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker, she goes through that too as well.
So Luke goes back to Dagobah to finish his training, but he doesn't finish his training. Or actually, he's actually receives some final instructions from Yoda. Luke, why don't you talk about that a little bit? And he reveals a big secret too.
Basically, like he's trying to talk to Yoda, and Yoda just keeps on ignoring him like the whole time.
Yeah.
He's just like, rest, I must rest. And then Luke's like, dang it, like, Yoda, I must know, like, is Darth Vader my father?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like the big question, because we already know in Empire Strikes Back, when they're on the bridge on Cloud City, you know, he's like, Luke, I am your father, you know? So you're like, in this whole decision, and then you hear Luke scream, no, that's not true, that's impossible. You know?
Yeah.
So So this is where it comes to the circle comes in. It comes whole. Is like Yoda's like the is Darth Vader my father? And then he's like, your question is correct, or something like that. He says you're true, or it is true. And basically Luke is upset with Yoda because he's like, Yoda and Obi-Wan never told me. You should have told me, He's like, what the heck? And then he confronts. It's so cool because you get to see, at this point, you obviously see Obi-Wan beforehand, but Obi-Wan appears to Luke as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
And this is like their being, their spiritual
Yoda
being.
dies if
Yoda
we didn't
dies.
If we didn't mention that.
that.
Yoda dies.
I'm
Yoda
so sorry about
passes.
that. Yoda passes. He pretty much gets raptured pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. He just like he
vanishes.
just disappears. He vanishes. Yeah, he does the whole
And
entire
all
Obi-Wan
you
like
see is his little brown cloak there, just lying there in his little
Yeah.
bed. And so Luke goes outside to go like fix his TIE fighter, or not his TIE fighter, his X-wing, and Red 5, his X-wing, and basically, Obi-Wan, he's like, I can't do this, R2. Yoda's not with me no more. And then Obi-Wan's Force Ghost appears, and it's like, Yoda will always be with you. You know? So it's just like, it's this. This is like a pivotal moment in the saga where it's like, he's like, Obi-Wan? Like, it's like, dude, like, the Jedi live. You know what I'm saying? Like,
this is where he kind of gets he finally finds hope in himself. Like, he finally believes in himself, right?
Exactly.
Because he tells him like he's mostly because they talk about Vader and they talk about like I know I can change him. He talks about this whole entire thing. I know I can change him. I know I can change him.
Yeah, and just Yoda actually, he tells Luke actually to remember the Force and to stay away from the dark side. His last words that he actually says are like, "Do not underestimate the power of the Empire, of the Emperor." My bad.
That's right.
Do not underestimate the power of the Emperor, because he knows that. Because his father, Anakin Skywalker, turned so easy. It's like, well, that Skywalker blood is in you.
Yeah.
There's that weakness for power. So he knows. He's like, don't underestimate the Emperor. You may think you could take him, but he's stronger than you think.
So Luke leaves the Dagobah system to go back with the rebels, right? He goes back with the rebels, and the rebels are pretty much gearing up to do a second run on the second Death Star. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is a part that I'm really interested. I like, though. This part is cool because this Death Star is not fully operational yet. They're still trying to bring it together. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have its own shield yet. There's a shield generator on Endor. Yeah. So why don't you go and talk about that?
Well, I have some facts real fast. Super cool facts. The first Death Star is actually 160 kilometers. Okay. That's the first Death Star. That's the first one.
Okay.
The second Death Star that's orbiting Endor is 160 to 900 kilometers long.
Wow.
So it's 9 times as big as the first one. So it looks smaller because it's still being built, but
right.
If you were to complete that circle, it's 9 times bigger than the first Death Star.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's like, holy snap, that's crazy. But basically, this Death Star is the second one. The first one, if you know, got blown up by Luke Skywalker.
Which I think is Luke's claim to fame, because this is one thing that I talked about with Courtney, okay? We were like, okay, Luke Skywalker he's not necessarily, we don't ever see Luke Skywalker being a great Jedi until he faces Ben Solo, right? Until he faces Kylo, right? And he force ghosts him.
He doesn't have that much credit. And then, so like, you always know Luke as like the crybaby, the whiner type guy.
Right.
Just like, I'm not getting my way.
Well, in the movies, yeah, but his renown in the new ones.
It's so funny because when you see Luke Skywalker appear at the end of Force Awakens, there's so much more heaviness to him. There's so much more backbone to him.
Yeah.
There than when you see him when you first see him in the first movie in episode 4. There's so much more credit. Yeah. There's
Well,
so
he's got
much more
more. Yeah, he's got
presence.
more experience, more game, and he's just like
Exactly.
totally. He's wiser. He's older.
He's wiser. He's a Jedi master
He's a
now,
Jedi master now. So
So
what?
it's like he's no longer a Padawan. He's no longer a Jedi Knight. He's a master. It's like, holy snap.
Which okay, so let's talk about that, because this is one thing I was talking about with Courtney. I was just kind of thinking, like, like really what happens in Return of the Jedi. He goes to face Vader, and
Yeah.
he knows that Vader's his father, and he goes to face him. He's like, I want to turn him back to the light side. I know there's good in him, right? And
He's
so
talking to Leia about this
he's
on
talking about
Endor.
Leia, exactly, and they're he ends up turning himself in when they end up getting to Endor to go
Yeah.
to go stop the shield generator there. The rebels come up with a plan. They're like, we're going to go down to Endor. We're going to drop in there. We're going to go bust this party up, and then we're going to sneak in the back door after we destroy the shield generator, and then we're going to go take out the new Death Star. Basically, this is always
Pretty
a plan. Always a plan. Okay.
Because they
And
get the plans by the Ewoks, because the Ewoks know the scout of the land. They know the land. They're like little Indians.
yeah,
They know
they're
the land. They know the landscape. And Han talks to the main head guy, and he's like, he knows where the backside of the fortress is.
yeah,
It's just
they know how to get into the back door of the shield generator, or where the shield generator's at. So basically, the rebels team up with the natives, which are Ewoks in this
Ewoks.
movie, and then they go and they attack the shield generator. Right. Well, Luke Skywalker goes on his own quest, which is to go face Darth Vader, his dad,
Vader.
right? And this
Yes.
is the meat and potatoes of the episode, because what's happening with the Ewoks, it's just cute stuff, but in reality, the story doesn't make any sense.
This is the bread and butter is right here.
Yeah,
the
the bread and
butter is Luke and Vader.
Luke and Vader, exactly.
Yeah,
So
the
so
bread
this
and
is
butter.
the bread and butter is Luke and Vader, and and his conflict with trying to bring his dad over. So remember,
Yes.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi had to do this with Anakin before, because he's like, Anakin, you were the chosen one, and
You
he's
were
just
supposed
like,
to destroy the stiff, not join them.
exactly. Okay.
You
And so
know?
now it's Luke Skywalker's turn. He continues this battle. He goes and he speaks to Anakin. He's like, I know there's still good in you. And he calls him Anakin. And what does Darth Vader
Yeah.
say? I haven't. Yeah,
I've never. Yeah, he's like, that name no longer has meaning for me. That's
exactly.
literally what he says. And he's just like, it is the true name of your true self. You've only forgotten it.
Yeah.
So it's like literally those are Luke and Vader's real words that they said. I'm quoting them.
Which is,
And there's so much heaviness there, because it's like, and you could hear the conflict in Vader's voice. He's like,
Yeah.
that has no meaning for me, dude.
yeah,
Like,
because there's pain behind it. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah.
it's like this
Yeah.
is his son telling him, like, hey, dad, like, I know there's still good in you. Come back to the light side. And like that struggle, like your father's son, kind of thing. You're like, oh my gosh, like,
and to think the last time he was like a Jedi, the last time that he knew that he felt good was hearing the death of his own wife,
Yeah.
hearing Padme died. He's just like, oh, like to bring that up again is like, holy snap. Because the Sith are known to throw aside all emotion, throw aside everything, and face your fears. Like, keep on going forward. Don't you have no recognition of anything.
Right. Which so what we end up seeing is Darth Vader taking Luke back to the Emperor, right?
The Emperor, yes.
So Luke Skywalker ends up, getting on. Darth Vader takes him. He goes back to the Emperor, and they go back onto the incomplete Death Star. That's where they're at. Okay.
Yeah.
And which is an interesting spot where we get to, because obviously this whole entire thing with the Ewoks is happening down there. These cute little bears are killing stormtroopers with sticks and stones, apparently, which makes no sense to me at all.
Hey, and with trees. Don't forget tree trunks, dude.
And tree trunks,
Trunks.
So then finally back on the Death Star, the one thing that I thought this was another bread and butter part, because this is going back to talking about the conflict with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Now we get the Emperor starting to chime in on this whole entire thing, where he's just like, yo, like, he's like, Luke, like, he's like, look at your friends out there. You think that you got the codes? You think that you got, because they basically the rebels stole a ship, and they got some codes to board to get actually onto Endor, right? And the Emperor's like, hey, you think that they got that ship on purpose? You think that they were able to do that? He's like, I gave them that ship. I pretty much planted the ship there for them to take so they can go down to. I set this whole entire thing up. So the rebels actually attacking the Empire,
The station,
the fleet,
the station, yeah, the
yeah,
fleet.
showing up. That was the Emperor's plan. He set that trap. And he's telling Luke
And
Skywalker
also,
this,
yep.
He's trying to get into under Luke Skywalker's skin and just sort of pinch a nerve where he's like, all the things that you thought that you were going to do when you came to come talk to your dad, you know what I'm saying? Like you trying to, win him over. I knew this was going to happen. That's why you're here in front of me now,
The
He's,
shield generator's still up. The shield's still up around the Death Star. There's a whole entire fleet of Star Destroyers
yeah.
that are there waiting for the Rebellion fleet to come.
Yeah.
So the Rebellion fleet jumps at a hyperspeed, and they're looking at the Death Star, but behind them is literally a whole fleet of
Well, they
Star
make their
Destroyers.
approach, remember, and Lando's
Yeah.
he's like, yo, that shield's not up yet. That shield's not down yet. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
Lando, he's in the Falcon and they're all, like
But
dipping
it's
out.
that's a super cool scene because you get to see the Falcon leading X-Wings,
Yeah.
Y-Wings, and one of my
B-Wings.
favorite ones, B-Wings.
Yes.
And so cool. The B-Wing is the coolest ship, one of the coolest ships that I've ever seen.
Right.
It's like a cross-wing. It looks like it just looks like a cross.
It looks like a
in
flying
there.
cross,
It's so
yeah.
cool. It
It's
looks
such a cool
super cool,
What-
A-Wings are cool. I like the A-Wings too. They also have A-Wings in there.
One of the things though that I think is worth mentioning though is that, Lando is a skilled fighter pilot. And the reason why you could tell is because he pretty much tells the rebel fleet, he's like, yo, we need to go fly over towards the Empire's fleet over there so we can draw their fire, and they'd have to fire upon themselves. Okay. It's pretty much what he says, and he's like, he's leading the charge and stuff, and you kind of get to see Lando become that dude, you know what I'm saying, like become the hero, and because in Solo he's just a hired gun, because he owns a Falcon, he's got a ship, he's a hired gun, but really we kind of get to see more of his skills and
it's cool.
Yeah,
it's super cool because you get to see him interact with Wedge.
Yeah,
and their fighting skill. You have Wedge as squadron leader, Red Squadron. He kind of takes that name from Luke because Luke is Red 5.
Yeah.
So Wedge is kind of like the head honcho of the TIE fighter, the TIE fighters. The
Rebel fleet,
the X-wings, the Rebel
Star
the
fleet,
Rebel fleet, this Rebel Star fleet. Yes,
yeah.
He's the leader, and so you get to see him interact with Lando. And it's so cool because you have two expert fighters.
Yeah.
Leading the charge.
Which is
awesome.
And from the star fights that's one of my favorite things about Star Wars. Lightsabers is lights. Anytime there's a lightsaber going off, popping off, I'm down for it. Anytime there's a star fight, there's a battle in space, and there's just Poe Dameron's one of my favorite characters. Any of the captains, Cassian Andor, like that guy's one of my favorite characters.
Wedge Antilles is my favorite. Wedge Antilles is like all time go to is for fighters, man. He's just a classic.
Porkins. What about Porkins? Shout out to Porkins. R.I.P. Porkins.
Porkins.
The only fat guy at Star Wars is name's Porkins. How sad.
Yeah, that's so great. Oh my goodness.
So, but he's on the Death Star, and he's and the Emperor's just talking mad trash, right? But this is my favorite part, though, because he's like, you want to strike me down, don't you? He's like, you want to strike me down right now, don't you? And
do it.
Do it.
Do it. And he's just like taunting him, like, kill me. But if you do kill me, you're gonna turn into the dark side.
But the cool part about it, though, is I like that Luke Skywalker. It's a little slow, but he turns around and he force wields his lightsaber to his hand, grabs it, and as soon as he swings, Darth Vader, you know what I'm saying,
and blocks it,
There. That scene right there is so dope.
For a split moment, Luke already overcame that temptation and was like, dude, I'm just going to kill you because you're pissing me off pretty much. So and you get that feeling like, it's like, oh snap, he was going to kill him. Like, dang.
Yeah. And but this is the cool part. This is a part that I thought was like super cool, is that we start seeing Luke talk to Vader, and he's like, I know there's still good in you, and they get into a fight. And this is the one thing when I talk about, like, Luke Skywalker is not a lightsaber, wielder. He's not like he's
not
the
a
most
wielder. He's not a Jedi master.
Yeah, he's the most untrained lightsaber Jedi that we've seen thus far, right?
Yeah, because even the younglings, I think, are better than him because they're trained by Yoda anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean they have yeah, they have practice. They've had practice around it
that are training. Yeah.
And so Luke's just kind of like learning on the fly, and then there's a part where Yoda's like, your training's complete kind of stuff. And even Vader says it. He talks about, he's like, well, I see your skills, your training is complete kind of stuff when he sees a new lightsaber.
You constructed a new lightsaber.
Yeah. So, but I don't think that has to do with, his training as far as how good he is at, fighting with a lightsaber. I think that has, it has to do more with his ability to harness the power of the Force and to use and feel the Force, right? And understand the Force. I think that's what they meant by his training.
I totally agree with that. Yep.
Because when he goes to fight Vader, you see that he's not a good lightsaber wielder. He's just swinging for the fences.
He's a brute. Like, he's literally a brute when he fights. He's just like, he uses his strength.
Yeah, well, he fights like his dad. He fights like Anakin. Yeah. Like when he fights like young Anakin, and he's just like, he's really wild, swinging hard,
chopping away. Yeah,
which this also takes me back to Kylo Ren now. Now, if you look at Kylo Ren, when he fights with the lightsaber, he does the same thing. He swings his lightsaber just like Luke Skywalker, just like young Anakin.
His anger is their anger is their power. Their anger is their strength.
Because they're Skywalkers.
And that's the hardest thing. The Skywalker's strength is the anger.
Yeah.
And if it's triggered so far, it could turn to the dark side. But if used the right way, it's a great leverage of fighting.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like seeing is that when Luke actually is hiding from Vader in the scene, there's a part where he's hiding under the steps.
Yeah.
And Vader's like trying to tell him, like, if you will not turn, perhaps your sister will, and he finds out that Leia is his daughter.
Yeah.
He just somehow figures it out because he's reading Luke's thoughts. He's like, the Force is telling him,
Yeah.
But there's a scene where you see Luke and he's under the steps. Half of his face is bluish black. The other half is clear. And so that in that moment, it's kind of like a thing where it's like it's contemplating Luke half good, half evil.
Right.
And so, and it's like, oh snap, like he's going through this trial right now, which is so crazy.
He was wrestling with that.
He's wrestling with that emotion of being a Sith or a Jedi.
I mean, could you imagine if Luke joined Darth Vader and the Emperor?
Oh yeah, I've seen a picture. There's books on it. There are books on it, and there's a picture of him like literally like standing next to the Emperor, and Vader, and literally his lightsaber's in Han Solo's chest. Like, wow. I've seen pictures of it. It looks crazy, and his eyes are like blackish yellow, because if you don't know, when you turn Sith, your eyes turn to yellow.
Wow.
The Jedi's eyes turn yellow when you're a Sith.
That's crazy. So that's extra crazy. Lore. That's extra stuff. I mean, I never heard that. I know that's extra deep stuff that you probably figure out if you watch Clone Wars or something.
Yeah. You look at if you look at double-edged lightsaber, Darth Maul, his eyes are yellow. You look at what's his name, dual wielder with the
Mace Windu, or not Mace Windu, not Mace Windu, Darth Maul, and Darth Maul, their eyes are yellow. And Luke Skywalker in Episode 3, his eyes turn yellow when he turns to the dark side. In Episode 3.
In Episode 3.
You mean Anakin?
Anakin.
Yeah. So picking up again, the rebels are down they're still down at the bottom near the shield generator. They're still trying to get that taken care of. And one of my favorite scenes happens in this movie which actually I think it's one of my favorite scenes. There's a part where I don't know if you remember, but like in the beginning in episode, I think it was in episode 5, Leia tells Han Solo, she's like, I love you, and he's like, I know, right? And then he gets frozen in carbonite, right? This particular scene, the roles are reversed, right? And so they are pretty much the stormtroopers sort of kind of like got them pinned, and Han has his back turned towards the two stormtroopers, and Leia's looking directly at Han, and she's got a blaster underneath her coat, in her coat, right? And she kind of peeps open. She shows Han real quick. She's like, "Yo, look, I got this blaster." Like, she does it discreetly so the other stormtroopers can't see. And Han goes, "I love you." And she goes, "I know." And then Han just sort of just like dips back real quick.
Gets
And
up,
then she
yeah.
just pew pew blasts
Double
these
blast.
dudes, straight up Bonnie and Clyde. And then they break in and they set the charges, right? And only to be foiled once more because
Yeah.
more stormtroopers show up, and it just continues to scale and get more out of hand. And then that's where we get to see the famous Ewoks, like the whole entire the saddest thing ever is seeing an Ewok die. Oh my god.
And right before that scene with Han and Leia, you get to see like this point where like Han taps a trooper on the arm and he runs around the corner.
Yeah.
Where there's a little group like sneak attack. Well, there's a guy that's literally pointed out. He looks like a bearded Santa. He looks like the bearded Santa. You can't miss him. He's right in the front. There's a theory that says he's actually Rex from the Clone Wars. That he's a turned clone trooper.
Wow.
That's Rex. That the guy that looks like the bearded Santa right in the front is and they actually have episodes on Clone Wars of him with the white beard. And it's so crazy, So he's like a turned and reformed trooper, which is so crazy.
I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'll take it too. That's what I'm saying. It's a theory. It's just a theory, but hey, that's cool.
Right.
Star Wars snippet.
So this whole entire battle and that thing happened. They end up finally blowing the shield generator, right? And finally, Lando and Wedge and the boys can finally make a run at blowing this thing up, And this is a cool scene because one of my favorite things is anytime I get to see the Falcon in action, I really like what they fly into the Death Star, the unfinished Death Star. They have to fly into, and they have to actually blow it up from the inside out, right? This is one of my favorite scenes because I really like. I think Wedge is the one who's just like, hey, like he's like, it's good, he's gonna say like, be alert because it can get real tight in here. And shortly after, the X-Wings that are following them, the TIE fighters that are following them into the Death Star, their wings or like part of their ship clip one of the, just like one of the sides of the Death Star on the inside.
Tight.
Yeah, it gets really tight. And only the Falcon can pull these like cool, like swift swag, just like twists through, weaves its way through it. And, obviously they blow the thing up.
Yeah. But in that star fight, though, it's so funny because you have obviously some small things, that obviously you have Admiral Akbar who's like, it's a trap.
Oh, yeah, the famous it's a trap happens.
The famous it's a trap happens, at the beginning of the fight when they look at the Death Star and all the Star Destroyers are in the back of them. When
Right.
They come at a hyperspeed. And you could hear them, there's 80 ships in Sector 7. And they turn around and Admiral Akbar is just like, it's a trap. But also, too, one of the coolest guys ever, Nealon Numb. I don't know if you all right, you don't know him, but he's literally Lando's co-pilot.
Oh yeah, that guy's so awesome. Yes.
All in the days too.
The guy who laughs.
I think he's literally like a Latino starfighter.
Yeah. he's just like cracking up the whole like any scene he's in, he's just like yeah, just chuckling the whole time.
A super cool guy, one of the coolest characters in Star Wars. I'm like, bro, if I wanna like, don't get me wrong, Chewie is the all-time like
co-pilot, yeah.
Co-pilot, but if Chewie wasn't there, I want this guy.
Yeah, that guy's cool. He'd probably be a good time,
You just be busting up laughing the whole time.
Luke's still facing Darth Vader. They're still fighting. Luke ends up actually cutting Vader's hand off, right? Yes. And at this point, you don't see any skin or any blood. You just see a steamy bunch of wires because it's, Vader's robotic hand, right? Why don't you talk about that?
Basically, if Anakin's already had that same hand cut off once. It was only once before because he gets his other hand chopped off by Obi-Wan Kenobi. So he has both of his hands are robotic, actually. But he gets his hand cut off, And so Luke's looking at it, and he's like, "It's robotic," you know.
Jeez,
And
how
he
many
even
times did he get hands cut off?
he got,
One,
I want to say 3 times.
4 times, because one and then two at the same time. Was it two at the same? No, you're
No, it was
three
just
times.
one. He had one
Okay, yeah,
because he
you're right.
climbed up with his electric arm.
Right, no, you're right.
So
Yeah,
he gets the first one cut off by
Dooku.
Count Dooku. Third one gets cut. Second cut gets cut off by Obi-Wan. The third time, Luke cuts off his hand.
Jeepers.
So, yeah, so it's like, bro,
He's like,
this
not
guy's
again.
hand getting chopped off. Like, really, bro?
Well, think about that in space. Getting your hand cut off in space is a common thing, dude. That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Well, not only he even got his legs chopped off by Obi-Wan too.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. But back to what we were saying, like at this moment, like Luke Skywalker looks at his own hand and he's just like, "You got your hand chopped off too," you know. So it's like you could see he's mirroring his own father. He's like, "God, I'm turning into my dad," you know. Like, am I gonna turn into the dark side?
Yeah.
You know. And halfway through this fight, though, like you see, like, halfway through the fight, after he chops off Vader's hand, the Emperor's like still trying to like get at him, you know, and he's like, "Never, I'll never turn to the dark side." And he throws like a belt or something on his glove. He throws the glove on the floor, and when he turns around, his flap opens up and it's white on the inside. And so this whole time, like you think like he's contemplating turning to the dark side.
Right.
He's always had the light on the inside. So the flap of his jacket opens up and it's all white.
Sort of,
so
kind of,
like,
sort of hinting, sort of foreshadowing. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, like,
you know,
he's still the Jedi, you know.
He's still
it's
Jedi.
Like,
And so at this point though, which is crazy, I know that the Emperor ends up, you know, shooting lightning out of hands, all crazy, you know, just because Vader gets struck down. Basically, Vader's gonna get killed. He's on like Luke has him pinned. Luke has him pinned. Yeah. And that's when Palpatine, you know, blasts off and he just starts hitting him with the lightning, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And he's not even like doing it lightly. Like he's frying this guy. He's toasting this dude. Just like,
you paid the price for your lack of vision.
And he's toasting him. He's literally toasting him.
There's too many memes for that. Definitely too many memes. But there's a point where there's a part where like you think that there's like a bubble. There was a funny meme where like there's a bubble head in Luke's head and it's like, "Obi-Wan, you couldn't tell me about the Force lightning?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oops." Oh, I forgot. You could deflect the Force lightning with your lightsaber.
With your lightsaber, yeah.
You know, and the whole time you're like, "Bro, your lightsaber was in your hand. Like you could have deflected it." But he didn't know that. He didn't know that.
Well, then there's this famous part though where Darth Vader, you know, he feels for Luke now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And this is the whole entire prophecy finally comes to be fulfilled. It's full circle finally. So, and this is the highlight of the first 6 movies. I don't know what you want to do with the last 3. I don't know what happened with those, but so basically what ends up happening is Luke Skywalker is getting toasted by the Emperor, and Vader, if you have the Blu-ray, if you have the new Blu-rays,
you'll notice it.
You'll notice it. You get this, I don't know if you remember it in episode 3 when Vader found out that Padme died. And when Anakin first becomes Vader and he finds out that Padme dies, he screams and he gives him a no.
But that same no that's in there appears in the new Blu-ray.
So if you didn't have the Blu-ray, you had the originals, all you had was dead silent and Vader just
yeah, and he chucks him over the edge. But
and then he stands up out of nowhere and he's like, like he doesn't make no. He just throws the Emperor. That's it. But in the new Blu-rays, you hear no.
Chucks him over the thing. Oh my goodness. Well, here's another theory that I heard. Because Palpatine knew that Anakin could have a chance of turning back to good. Mm-hmm. He left a weakness in his suit for Force lightning. And so one of the things that, obviously his hand got chopped off, but one of the things that could have happened was it could have fried his circuits. Yeah. His breathing circuits when he picked him up to throw him down the shaft. that the lightning could have destroyed his circuits, because you see the lightning hit him and his face is going like skull looking.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. It's not a regular skull. It's the skull of his helmet. It's funny. It's not even like a human skull. It's the skull of his helmet. It's like, bro, that's funny. It's like his helmet was actually his skull.
Oh man, that's funny. Well,
So yeah, it's funny.
so Luke ends up surviving, but the Emperor ends up dying. So Vader tossed him down the shaft, right? So we think the Emperor's dead, but turns out he's just being cloned according to the new Star Wars. He's just being cloned.
Star Wars, he's been cloned.
But we see Luke have a final conversation with Vader, and he's just like, I knew there was still good in you. And at the very end, Vader, why don't you talk about that when they're boarding, when they're leaving the Death Star before it blows?
Basically, the Death Star is blowing up from the inside. It's kind of like everything's like falling apart. Everybody's running. Like they see Luke Skywalker dragging Vader on the floor, and then nobody cares. They're like, get the heck out of here. Let's get out of here. Forget it. And so, like,
it's abandoned ship at that point. All the stormtroopers are like, "Yo, whatever, dude, I'm out."
I'm out. I'm dipping, And so Luke's pulling like Vader on the floor, and then Vader's like, "Luke, I must tell you something. Like, get over here. I'm about to die, pretty much." And he's like, he gets over there. He's like, "Take my mask off." And he's like, "I can't. You'll die." He's like, "Bro, I'm gonna die anyways." He's like, "I'm already dead," And at this point, like, you see him remove the helmet, which like. The sound of it's like it sounds like it hasn't been removed in years,
Yeah.
It's like, bro, this guy sleeps with his dang helmet on, like it just
gross.
And you see his head, like it just looks like a chewed up bubblegum head. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like
yeah,
and he's just like, "Go, my son," leave me, and he's just like, "No, I got to save you." Just like this father-son moment of. Like, he's a Jedi now. He literally came back to the good side.
Yeah.
It just shows that, like, the mask got taken off, the dark side got swept away, and this is Anakin. He's talking to Anakin.
And he bring balance. Technically, he bring balance to the Force. Technically,
yes.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure because Luke Skywalker's still a Jedi, and if there's a Jedi, then there has to be a Sith,
There
right?
has to be a Sith, exactly.
So there was a moment of, like, peace in the galaxy, though.
According to this, though, if you think about it, Palpatine's still alive.
Palpatine's still alive, right? Exactly.
So there is that balance still. If you think about it that way, there still is a balance. But you get to see, like, obviously, like, they're mirroring it. You see Luke's flap open in the white. He's good. He's back to being Jedi Knight. Luke Skywalker, it's like he's there. And so the last moment is seeing this father impart, like, you saved me.
Yeah.
Like, to his son, and he's like, "Tell your sister you were right." He's literally telling him, like, "You were right," this
Which
whole
is
time.
and so the thing about Star Wars too, like this whole entire story about, like when it comes down to it, yes, there's lightsabers and all this stuff. There's the galaxy or whatever, but the transition of Darth Vader's character at the end of it is not highlighted enough, I think, in Star Wars Legends. It's like, oh, Darth Vader was this bad dude, but at the very end of it, like his son convinces him. And there is like this moment of like, I guess, galactic forgiveness or something. I don't know what you want to call it, So at the end of this whole entire thing, they finally blow up the Death Star. That's it. It's gone.
It's this huge celebration on Endor. This party on Endor. It's this,
all throughout the galaxy we see. Remember,
throughout the galaxy. But it's so cool because you get to see this moment. And it's a pivotal moment because this has been there forever, and people, like, they have the remastered version, but they have the remastered version, but if you don't pay attention in the originals, it's literally you see Coruscant in there.
Yeah.
And so Coruscant is where it all started, where the Jedi Palace is, where the Senate is. You get to see Coruscant, and it's a crazy moment because you get to see Palpatine's statue getting pulled down.
Right.
And so it's like this big moment where it's like, holy snap. Like, beforehand we would see it and it had like no backing to it, But now that we saw the first 3 films,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, that has so much meaning to it when they pull that statue.
Exactly, because the Empire's done now. So the
Yeah.
Emperor's dead. The rebels won. And so you see in the remakes of Star Wars, the re-releases of Star Wars, you'll see that they added on throughout the galaxy. A party was taking place. Exactly.
Everywhere they're partying.
The galaxies, yeah, exactly. Naboo. Everybody's raising the roof and everything because this is the end of the Empire. And in Mandalorian, what we see is the rebirth of the First Order, First Order. So we see the beginning of that. And so that's kind of why me and Luke wanted to go through Return of the Jedi, because it puts us at a good spot for understanding where we are in the Mandalorian timeline.
In the Mandalorian series.
It kind of sets it up for us. It gives us an idea that rebels are in power, and right now what's going on throughout the galaxies, we see the rise of the First Order. Kylo Ren should probably be showing up. Maybe he's born. Who knows?
We'll find out.
I don't know if he's born yet, but he could be a kid. We're going to figure out more of this stuff. We're excited for season 2 of The Mandalorian, which brings me to our next point before we sign off tonight. Last words on Return of the Jedi. Go for it.
Last words. Definitely super good film, but like I said, you get to see the rebels celebrating. The one of the cool key moments is you see Vader turn back into Anakin,
right?
And he dies a warrior's death of a Jedi.
Yes,
where Luke actually burns him, and that's a pivotal moment where all Jedi, that's the way they die. That's how they're supposed to be buried, is being burned alive.
Which there is a lot of weight to that. There's a weight to that, because it's like, because Jedis have all been extinct now, and there hasn't been a Jedi that's been cremated like this, like the way Qui-Gon was, right?
Years.
Yeah. And so Vader sort of gets Anakin gets the warrior's death, which is so super cool, man. Because I want to know more about the Jedi. I want to know more about the old Republic. I think the timeline. If you're listening to this, go through, watch all the movies, because you have to see this thing in its entirety to understand the story.
And it's so big. Even in Clone Wars, you get to see a lot of Anakin's emotions in Clone Wars more than in the films.
Yeah.
In the Clone Wars series, even though everybody's like, it's animated, it has a heavy storyline on the things that you don't see in the movies.
Right.
And you get to see Anakin transform from being the Padawan, from being the kid, into turning into Darth Vader, and what drives his anger, and what's going on in his mind.
Because all the things that he sees as a Padawan growing up and stuff, all the fights, all the battles that he's been in, he was literally used by the Jedis. Jedi were like, we need to train Anakin, and of course they sent him on missions to go do these things, right? So and that kind of fueled his reasoning for leaving the Jedi and turning into the dark side, because obviously he wanted to live forever. Okay, so crazy thing, let me I don't know if you remember in the original, how Anakin says, I want to live forever because his mom dies. And so he's like, I need to figure this out. And Palpatine promises him eternal life. Palpatine's like, together you and I will find the secrets to live forever, right? For immortality, right? And so they go on this quest throughout the galaxy, and in the new Star Wars, in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, we see that the Emperor is being cloned, so he technically does live forever.
He does live forever. He finds immortality.
He kind of finds it, yeah. And Vader obviously doesn't get to partake in that because he gets killed.
He died.
Yeah. Anyways, so a lot of stuff about Star Wars, man. I'm excited for Mandalorian season 2, dude.
Definitely.
Oh man, I can't wait to see some Baby Yoda. We got 15 days. 15 days.
15 days.
Oh man,
it's like 15 days of quarantine.
So yeah, guys, don't forget, we're going to do a special episode on the 29th where we will have multiple people from the past episodes that have been on the Star Bros Mandalorian episodes with us. We'll have them join us on the call, and we'll have a panel of people, and we'll just kind of go through our expectations for the new season and just catch up and just nerd out and just get really hyped up for season 2, man. Anyways, I just want to say, any last words, Luke, before we sign off? Any shout outs?
Shout outs. If you haven't, like I said, if you need fitness, Beast Mode Squats here.
Instagram, Beast Mode Squats.
Instagram, Beast Mode Squats, part of the Average Fellows podcast. We are here. If you want to hear more about fitness, go over to Beast Mode Squats and drop a message in.
For sure, man. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us on our Thursday night episodes where we just chat about Star Wars, Mandalorian. We're getting excited for that. Super stoked. Next week, we're going to talk about The Force Awakens. We're going to go through The Force Awakens next week, so stick around for that, guys. Thank you guys so much. Peace and love.